Hello and welcome to this session of AzEDS Integrity, Introduction to AzEDS Integrity. I'm Monica Paz. I am an account analyst for the school finance team. In this session, we're going to go over the top 5 integrity errors. So we'll define integrity, what integrity is, reports to find integrity errors, reviewing ADM integrity errors, tools to help resolve it, and resources. So before we go through that, I'd like to introduce the team. School finance is broken up into 3 little teams. We have the school finance account analyst team. You can reach us for student data, SDER reports, if you're district and transportation reporting, instructional calendars, and 915s. If you have questions regarding payments or budgets, you want to reach out to each of those individual teams. Each of us have a shared inbox, so if you have a question, email us at the shared inbox so that somebody from that unit can reach out to you. Hot topics. If you're new to school finance, you definitely want to make sure that you have school finance as a favorite somewhere. If you go to www.azed.gov/finance, it'll take you to the school finance homepage. Left hand side, you'll see a section called Hot Topics. At that point is where we communicate big changes to the LEA or local education agencies. You can also click on the right hand side for budgets, hot topics, data, hot topics, or payments. If you click on that guy, you'll see on the next screen, you got a little red guy here, subscribe for updates. You can subscribe for any single time a hot topic from the school finance team has posted. So if you're specific to budgets, you only want to find out when the budgets team has posted something, you can click on that category so that you receive emails or notices from that team. Before I get started, I like to always make sure that I go over the AzEDS process so that we can understand what happens to our data. We can't understand integrity or ACE or ADM if we don't understand where that is in the process. So if you've been to any one of our workshops or one of my presentations, you've seen this diagram before. Bear with me, so we'll go through this again. Diagram again because I think it best illustrates the AzEDS process. So the little blue guy there is our friend. That would be you, the LEA or local education agency. The computer that he's holding, it represents the SIS or student information system that you have contracted with. That is where you're entering student data information such as demographic, parent information, all the good stuff that has to do with the student attendance and all of that. How your SIS communicates with AzEDS is via transactions. That transactions that are sent is called an API. It's sent through the application program interface, and that is available 24/7 for the most part. If you are signed up with the AzEDS red flag notices, if the API is ever down or unavailable for maintenance, you should receive a red flag notice. So that, for the better part, is open 24/7 for your SIS to communicate however frequently you have determined for it to communicate, whether it be every single time a student data element changes within your SIS, every hour, once a week, at minimum every 20 days. And so again, that's available 24/7. Every single night, integrity runs on the data that has landed within AzEDS, and ACE runs every single night. As soon as integrity is done completed, it takes about an hour or 2 every single night. As a result of that process, each time a data element is touched or it runs through a process, a report is generated. So as soon as the student information system lands or goes through the API, you will see those data GUIDs or resource IDs on a Trans 10, which is a summary of the transactions that have landed within the past 3 days. They're only 3-day window reports, or the detail of the transactions that have landed on the Trans 15. Those are the API reports. If you are looking for data elements that have actually landed within AzEDS, you will want to look at this any one of the 10 or 72 reports. Those reports will show you the data that has landed pre-integrity. Integrity runs every single night. As a result of those integrity process, Intake 15 runs on student data. Intake 35 runs on calendar information, instructional calendar information that you have submitted. And then ACE runs, and as a result of ACE process, the ADM reports are generated. ADM 15 is the detail report, ADM 20 is the summary report, and then the limited ADM 25 report are generated. So let's kind of zoom out so that we can see what happens on a monthly process. Though Integrity and ACE run every single night, data push, or the process of which we submit the information over to the payments team for you to receive payment once a month, happens only once a month. So it's important for you to understand that that happens once a month through a process called data push. Data push is where a account analyst comes in the next day after we've captured the data on a specified date and push it over to the payments team and generate the 46-1, the 28, and then ultimately the 55-1 and 64 for payments. So we are actually talking about integrity. Integrity is a set of rules that are defined by the ADE businesses within the Department of Education, whether it be school finance, OLS for ELL, or ESS for special education students, Title I, Johnson O'Malley, or any one of the other program needs, and of course Arizona revised statute. Integrity is run on student data that has passed through the API and has landed into AzEDS. It runs every single night at 5 p.m. and again a report is generated as a result of the process. The integrity rules are broken up into groups. So you have ADM, regular ADM for basic state aid, ELL, SPED. We have FedSped and all sorts of other types of integrity rules. We'll go through that in the next slide. Integrity rules can show as pass or fail, depending on how you pull up your Integ 15. You can either show to past integrity results that have passed, integrity results for students that have failed. Some of the integrity errors will only show as warnings, and some of these rules can affect a student's ability or eligibility to generate ADM for your school. Here are the different types of integrity rule app sections. The ones that we're typically the student account analysts are going to look for are the membership rules. Do those affect ADM eligibility? Yes. So if you see a 10,000 failure on your integrity reports, you're definitely going to want to get those fixed. 20,000 are from the accountability team. 21,000 are also from accountability. There are two different types of rule sets. The 20s will affect eligibility. 21s may not. ELL is under the 30,000, SPED under the 40, and so on. You can take a look at the rule references within the AZED.gov in ALIS. So if you go to AZED.gov/ALIS/AZEDS, it'll take you to the AZEDS homepage. The button that you want to look at specific to integrity rules reference is under references. Click on that guy and it'll take you over to the drop down box for integrity rules and integrity rules QRGs, or quick reference guides. And it'll show you exactly what each integrity rule is that's in the system by each group. So to view the integrity reports, you'd want to go to the AzEDS portal under reports. Integrity again is run every single night at 5 p.m. So before you go into the system to look at your reports, you want to stop for a minute and look at system status and make sure that the status is completed for each one of these integrity processes. If it is not complete, it will show as a red button as incomplete. Also, it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense if you're looking for integrity errors specific to ADM if this was showing as incomplete, because the reports that you're looking at may not show accurate information if the process did not complete. Those are rare occasions, so you just want to make sure that you're pausing for a minute and that all lights are green. To find the Integ 15, it's under the AzEDS portal under reports on the left hand side under student detail. You'll see the Integ 15 available. Again, you can look by the integrity category. You can look at the integrity status for failed or passed, and then you can hit view report. This will show you a report of the students. In this instance, I'm looking for students that have failed integrity. What I'm going to do with this report, because this report just so happened to be 41 pages, I'm going to go ahead and select CSV to have this report dumped into an Excel spreadsheet. That way it's a little bit easier for me to look at so that I can filter my reports, so that I can work on common errors or common students. However I determine is best for me to reconcile. If I'm looking for a specific student, it's easier for me to look for that student on an Excel spreadsheet. If you are not familiar with Excel, I highly recommend you learn at minimum how to sort and filter columns, and how to search for student IDs by just simply hitting Control F to search for a specific student ID or student name within the intake report for this instance. So I said we're going to just go over the top 5 errors, and this is actually 6 errors that are listed here, but it's because they are all connected. So I just wanted to make sure that I was putting those that are on here. So if you notice on the last report that I was showing, this school had a lot of membership errors in regards to student data elements landing. And this is a big one that we see. AzEDS is super fast. It's a lot faster than the days of SACE. But oftentimes, AzEDS, because it's so fast, we expect the data to land automatically. But with Integrity and ACE running every single night, like I said, there still has to be a cutoff. And so sometimes when you're sending data and Integrity is set to run at night and it hasn't landed, your data hasn't landed as it should, there's still that cutoff. And so you'll receive these errors. And so sometimes when you call us, we'll say, it's just a timing issue. Just wait an extra day. And for us to understand that, it's easy for us to understand that those elements of data didn't land because it was cut off for integrity processing. But I hope to illustrate what I mean when I say it's a timing issue. So we're going to go over these top 5. Once you understand the data process and once you understand kind of just the whole how transactions land, hopefully you'll begin to kind of understand and see that it's a timing issue. So let's talk about process and AzEDS. So for this one, this is one that we see, and we actually had the IT team pull the highest integrity errors for the year. And so we analyzed the data set that they sent us, and they sent us this huge spreadsheet, and we were able to identify which integrity error we see the most. And so this was the biggest offender. FTE, tuition payer, and DOR are required for an enrollment submitted for a membership of MANT. Only DOR is required if membership is type P. So what in the world did I just say? FTE is full-time enrollment, so a value that a student is enrolled within your school based on the number of hours that the student has submitted. So element for full-time enrollment could be 1, 0.75, 0.5, 0.25, or 0. Tuition payer is the student a fundable student? A tuition payer code 1 is a fundable student, which should be most of your students. A tuition payer code 2 or 3 are non-fundable students, either because they're privately paid tuition or are not eligible for funding for basic state aid. DOR is district of residence. You are the district of residence for your school. Are required for an enrollment submitted with a membership type of M, which stands for main, A. Most of your students are main, just so you know, there's a hint there. A for ancillary type membership. Ancillary membership, we typically see that for students that are enrolled in a CTED. Those are the career technical education districts, such as Westmec, EVIT, those types of districts. Or T is for TAPI. TAPI is for AOI students, or Arizona Online students, or students that are taking online courses at an online school. T for TAPI was the old term that was used in SACE world. It used to be Technology Assisted Based Program Interface, was the acronym for T. And so that kind of stuck around, and so T is for online schools. That's a tricky one. Only DOR, so district of residence, is required if a membership is a type P, and those are program only students. And I think that this type of P membership for program only students is actually going to fade away. If you have questions regarding if you have this type of student for membership type P, I believe that you want to reach out to the ESS or special education department, because they're the ones that specifically ask for you to use these types of memberships. So hint again, most of your memberships at your district of residence should be a membership type M for Maine. So let's go back to this one. So here's you, the blue guy, and your student information system. You're entering your student information and you're sending elements of data. So you have a student and you're sending those information, those elements. They're landing individually. And so that's probably something that you don't see. And so I hope that I can illustrate how this happens, this integrity error happens. On your end, you may see like, hey, I enrolled this student. I do have all of these values in my student information system. I don't understand why it didn't send. And so when I say that it's a timing issue, hopefully I can illustrate that. So we have this student whose full-time enrollment is a 1. And what you don't see on your end or on the back end of things and the transaction that it's being sent is that FTE is being sent in little pieces of information. So we have an FTE value, hopefully of 1, your school ID, the school ID that the student is attending, and then entry and exit dates. So that little element has all sorts of stuff attached to it. Tuition payer, which is either a 1.0, tuition payer code 1 or 2 or 3, whatever the student is eligible for. And that also has little pieces of information that are attached to that tuition payer. DOR, which is the district of residence, that's you. That also has sets of value transactions that are attached to that. So you have the district ID, the school ID, and then also entry and exit dates that are attached to that element of data. And then you have the school. You have the school ID. So if you're, let's just pick on Mesa for example. So you have Mesa Unified as the district, and the student is attending Mesa High. So you have the DOR, Mesa Unified, School ID, Mesa High, and each one of those entities has an ID. So those elements of data need to come with all of these pieces of information. And for school specifically, you also have an entry and exit date. You also have the membership type, so MA or T, main, ancillary, or TAPI. And then the track number is the calendar that that student is attending for that school. So super fun. Lots of information. And as you submit to sync or publish, whatever verb your student information system uses, it's sending this information through the API to land in AzEDS. The API, again, is the application program interface, so that it can land in AzEDS. So as it's sending those elements of data, it's going through the API. What happens if you do it at 4 o'clock and you're doing a total sync of all your students? Remember, integrity runs every single night at 5 o'clock, and so there has to be a cutoff point. So let's say that you're submitting this and data is running through the system as it should, but then all of a sudden, guess what? We have to stop because integrity needs to run for the entire state. So those elements of data didn't land. So even though you as a SIS submitted all of this information and you hit the sync button and everything's good to go and the data is flying through the API as it should, there was a cutoff point. And so as a result of integrity, the next day you would see this student on your integrity report with this 10099, because guess what? Membership type didn't make it. Where FTE, tuition, and DOR did make it, membership type did not. So this is simply a timing error. So what will happen? Eventually the API will open up again after integrity and ACE have completed for that night, and then those elements of data should be able to go through the API. But for right now it's closed because integrity and ACE are processing. So then what happens? So then the next night for integrity and ACE, you should see those students drop off because the data is there. It's just that while integrity ran at that moment, those pieces were not there. Those pieces of information were not there. So how do we verify that? How do we know, like, oh, this is just a timing issue? One of the ways that we can do that is we can pull up the verification report. So if we can see just back here on this side, we have the verification report. And like I told you in the AzEDS process back in some of the beginning slides, the first thing is, did it land? Did it go through the API? So we want to take a look at those verification reports. If I'm looking at one specific student, the report that I want to take a look at is the STUD72. The STUD72 will show me exactly the membership information that has landed for this student. And in this case, I pulled the STUD72 for Jane Smith. And she was missing the membership type. So if I pull the STED 72, I have all the information that I would ever need for this student except the membership type. And that's exactly what the error was telling me is, hey, we're missing an element for this student. And sure enough. And since this is a verification report, this report or elements of data become available as soon as it's landed. Because it didn't land that night, it's just going to show as blank. You can also look at the student analysis tool. The student analysis tool will show you exactly what has landed within the system. And you can see here, if you were to pull for this specific student, that this student did not have a membership type, that this was blank. So you'll see that FTE, tuition payer, so everything else had landed. So if you just looked at either the STED 72 or the student analysis tool within AD Connect, you'll see that that element is missing. Next one that we see is absence or attendance falls outside of the enrollment. So first thing we want to make sure to resolve this issue is we want to identify the student's enrollment dates, identify which instructional calendar the student has been assigned. So if you are attending a high school or whatever and you have multiple tracks at that one school, you want to make sure that you're looking at the right calendar so we can verify the attendance. We want to make sure that the attendance that is reported is not being reported on a day that is not in session, like the 4th of July or something like that, or Veterans Day, or a day that you've said is a teacher in service day and you're reporting that student is absent. If you're not seeing anything within that window, you want to make sure that you're pulling up the ABSATT10. And I'll talk about the ABSATT10 in just a minute. So we're going to pull up the STED 72 for this student. We're going to verify the enrollment dates that the student has enrolled within your school. So the enrollment dates for this student is listed on the STED 72. We have the withdrawal date, we have the membership date here. So entry date is E1, W1, 87 to 52. So just so that we understand the window that we're looking for. I know that obviously if I have an absence recorded on 8/6, it's not going to make sense, and that would make sense that I'm receiving that error. So let's just verify that that track makes sense. 8/7 is the start date. That makes sense. School started on 8/6. 5/2, the student withdrew. Makes sense. Last day of school was 5/23. Verify that the student reported is not in the student's attendance reported is on not an instructional day, such as a teacher in service day. So the STED 72, we're just going to take a look at this left-hand column. The student had quite a few absences. So we're just going to take a look at this one just for ease. The STED 72, this is a capture from the STED 72 for the student's absences. I'm going to take a look at my calendar, and I'm just going to go side by side and verify. 8:15, we're good. It looks like it was a day in session. 9/4, we're good. It was a day in session. We're just going to kind of go through each one. And then here, 9/14. What happened on 9/14? That's a Friday. This is a Monday through Thursday school, but for whatever reason, my sis or a registrar or attendance clerk reported that the student was absent for a 0.25 value on a day that wasn't a session in school. So here's your guide. Within your sis, you want to make sure that you delete that absence. So what happens if I look at the STED 72 and everything matches? So I'm looking through 8:15, 9/4, 9/5. Wait a minute. Everything matches. This doesn't make sense. Why am I receiving this error? The STED 72 only shows attendance that's been reported within this window. So it's only looking from 8/7 to 5/2. So like I had said earlier, if you accidentally reported an absence on 8/6 for whatever reason, or even on 5/3, the STED 72 has parameters to only look between 8/7 and 5/2. So it's only capturing that window. So we want to make sure that we're going to open that up. The ABSATT10 is going to be your guide. This guy's going to show you the detail of everything that's ever landed in the system. Unfortunately, this report, you cannot filter by student. It's all information. So all attendance is landed ever for your school. So it's a pretty big report if you're a large school, but it's super useful if you're looking for this type of error. When I pull the report, the parameters that I use is start date is 7/1, beginning of the fiscal year. Number of days 365, just for the entire year. If I were to select any one of the other options, that's also counting calendar days, not school days. And so you may not receive the full all of the days that you need. So just for ease of sake, I always just do 7/1 beginning of the fiscal year and 365, so it just shows me everything. So here's the ABSATT10. Again, absence or attendance falls outside of the student's enrollment. We already established that Mary was enrolled from 8/7 to 5/2. Here's a screenshot of Mary's attendance that was showing on the stud 72. ABSATT10 will show the detail. And so here, sure enough, we established that Mary was enrolled on 8/6, but for whatever reason, there's an absence date reported on 8/6 for her. So if I were to look in my SIS and I needed assistance from my SIS vendor, I'd call, and they probably are going to need this event resource ID, and we can say, hey, I've got a resource that I need to send a transaction to delete this resource ID out of here so that we can get 8/6 out of there. A lot of the errors that we see based off of the report that the AzEDS team gave us were based off of calendar issues. So membership DOR beginning or end date falls outside of the session calendar. Those are all related to calendars. And as I had kind of explained earlier, FTE, tuition payer, and membership, all of those have a begin and end date. And so the way that you can verify that is based off of the student's stud 72. So where I had shown you that each one of those students' elements has a beginning and end date, you can look at the student stud 72 for each one of those. So you'll see here funded DOR, the DOR start end date. FTE also has start. This should have an end date. Likely you're receiving an error for this one. Tuition payer code also has a code value, start end date. So where each one of those elements of data, just like in my example here, they all have all these pieces of information attached to it. So if any one of those things are missing, you're going to receive that error. And so a lot of them were based off of calendar and just timing. So just knowing where to look, and the Stud 72 and the Student Analysis tool are powerful tools if you know what it is that you're looking for. So let's kind of go back all the way. We've opened that window. We're looking at the ABSATT10. And now we're our calendar related issues. Understanding that those elements of data all have individual pieces will help you kind of understand where to look for those. So verify the student using the student analysis tool or the Stud 72. Very, very powerful tool for you to just be able to pull those reports up and just quickly and briefly look what could be missing. So on this one, we've established the same dates, 8/7 to 5/2. Verify the calendar. We have a start date here. This one I switched up the calendar on you, 8/8. Yikes. Didn't we say she started 8/7? So those are tools that you can use. So we would expect to see that an enrollment date falls out of that calendar. And it's true. We have an entry date of 8/7. The data's going to land. It's not a bad date. But it's not going to agree with what the calendar that you've set for this student. So those are things that you can look for in how to reconcile your data. So looking at your integrity report, it's super, super important to look at that every single time you know that a data capture is going to happen. If you have questions and you don't understand what the integrity error is looking at specific to ADM, please email the SF Analyst team at sfanalystteam@az.gov. You can always call the school finance main line and get transferred to speak to an account analyst at 602-542-5695. And if you have questions regarding how to get access to these reports, you definitely want to reach out to the IT team or talk to your entity administrator listed at your site. Please make sure that you make az.gov/finance one of your favorites so that you keep up to date. And again, if you have questions, you can always reach out to the SF Analyst team. That's all I have. Thanks for hanging out with me.